Welcome to today's episode titled Pedagogical Horizons, brought to you by Eduten India. I'm your host, Geeta Gujral. Come on, hop in, and together we are going to explore the stories, strategies, and insights of the learning loop. We are joined by a very special guest today, Mr. Raghav Sharma. He is Director Innovation of Bhai Parmanand Vidya Mandir, a renowned school in Delhi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr.
It's an honor
Raghav
to
is
be
going to talk about math education, past and present. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure is all mine.
So, can we just start by asking you, what was your favorite subject in school? Maybe primary school. Let's start with your primary schooling.
You were going way back in the years, ma'am. I really did not have a favorite subject. I mean, I was a sports guy, so I hated all subjects equally. Jokes apart, I liked all the subjects. Maths, science, and even EVS were pretty intriguing for me.
Okay.
So I'd had a good time studying all of them.
And how about your friends in the class? Were they comfortable doing mathematics at that time? Years back, maybe 10, 15, 20 years back?
Ma'am, I think back then we as students were not really in the zone of sharing our struggles with each other. So there were a few students who naturally did struggle with mathematics, but overall nobody came out and said that these are my struggles, and they all had to deal with it in a very private manner. Maybe them and their parents and the teachers knew as to what the actual problem was.
So, when we look at today's scenario, parents these days have a kind of fear phobia for mathematics. And I think that has gone down into the children also these days. In some children, I wouldn't give a statement like that, but in quite a few children, we've heard them say, Mummy said that, you have to be very good at mathematics. So, how do you deal with something like that in your school?
Ma'am, I think it's not really the fear of mathematics per se. I'm not saying the fear of mathematics does not exist, but the fear is not because of mathematics. The fear is because of expectations. And in today's world, unfortunately, even though a lot of career options have opened up, the primary goal is to make our children engineers. And mathematics is a very key component of engineering. So the expectation to be good at math sometimes takes a toll on the learning path of a child. So if a child is slightly slower in grasping some of the concepts, I think it's the pressure of expectation of the child that leads to the fear of mathematics rather than there being anything supernatural about learning maths.
Rightly said. And with the intervention of technology, we see apps coming in, we see gamification coming in, we see AI coming in, and more so in your school, you've implemented Eduten India in a very big way, which is AI powered math gamification program. And when I visited your school recently, I saw grade 2 children. They were so savvy doing what they were doing with Eduten program. So, firstly, how has this program impacted the learners and their learning? And looking into the way the children were doing in such an organized way, is it that the teacher is putting in a lot of effort, or is it in the new generation that it just comes automatically?
It's a multifold answer, and obviously the teachers have put in a lot of effort for their part. For the implementation of Eduten, I mean, in general, what we try and do in the school is anything we add to the teacher's plate, we try and remove something else that they will have to do slightly less. But Eduten was something that the teachers were more than willing to put in the extra hours because they saw some of the benefits that can be derived for the students. For us, it's slightly predated than that. We've always been very lucky to have a management that has the foresight and the wherewithal to try new things, and their idea that we need to ensure that we try and help every child with whatever struggles they are having is what led us to this kind of an implementation. And the key component to helping children in their struggles is to identify where their struggles are, and that's where technology has played a big role uh, in terms of we are able to not just Eduten, even with other tools that we use, we are able to identify as to where the child is struggling, and then probably introduce interventions on that child. And then the technology helps us even further tracking as to whether those interventions are working or not. So that's the beauty of technology that was probably not available even 10 years back. So we've been fortunate to implement tools like Eduten that have been able to give us insights. And another fantastic part about the tool is that the exercises that a child gets is based on their proficiency level. So if I am struggling a bit, then the exercises I will get are slightly easier. And for the ones who are doing really well, they will start getting more difficult exercises, which is essentially the core of growth mindset. So I have to be able to try, fail, try again, and which is why gamification is probably the best way to go about it. Because we all know nobody becomes an expert player in the first try, and sports is one avenue, or games are one avenue where we don't feel the stress of failing either. So that's probably a very good combination.
Very rightly said once again. And how do your teachers feel? Is the technology overpowering them, or they're actually in control of what's happening with each child in the classroom with gamification, AI?
It's a common fear in the education field that the technology is going to take over. And I remember being at a conference where one of the speakers mentioned a run-in with Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO of Google, and their conversation went something like, he asked Eric the same question, that do you think technology is going to replace teachers? And he said that can never happen, because education is about transfer of a knowledge from a human being to another human being. So a technology will never be able to replicate that. But coming back to your question of whether it's been empowering teachers or overpowering them, it kind of depends on how you're taking technology into your institution. And if you feel that, okay, this is a tool that is going to replace a task that a teacher does, that rarely is a good mindset to start with. Everything has to start with the teacher and has to end with the teacher. So any tool that you're using has to be something that either gives teachers greater insights or reduces their workload. So that's how we approach all the technology solutions that we try and implement.
So teachers will always be there as teachers,
Oh, absolutely. We need more teachers.
empowered teachers.
We need more and more teachers. I mean, we would love to have more teachers rather than less teachers.
Actually, I feel those modern tools are just helping the teachers to grow, and maybe they're making their task easier if I look at it that way.
Again, I mean, it depends. It is in a lot of ways, but it depends on how each institution is using those tools. So if you are using them from a perspective of making sure that the teacher is not overburdened, then it will not overburden the teacher. So that's the key point on that.
It's how it's laid on the table. It's
Exactly.
like that.
Exactly.
With technology coming in, and also in the classes, we see there are children who are gifted learners.
Mhm.
And I think you just talked about it also. And there are some children who are still struggling with concepts. So, how do you deal with that when the technology intervention comes in? So, how do you deal with that? I mean, does it help the learners learn better and faster? Or is it that the technology is going too fast and the children who are not able to keep pace with it feel withdrawn, or they are just maybe motivated to do more? Is it helping them?
Ma'am, again, it totally depends because every child is their own child, and every child has his or her own struggles. And it actually depends on what you're struggling with as far as learning of maths is concerned. Uh, if your struggles are primarily to do with, say, focus and concentration when the child sits to learn maths, then it's just a direct replacement of what they're doing on pen and paper because the gamification element just gives that much more engagement. So when the gamification element gives that much more engagement, the focus is already drawn in. But if there are other types of struggles as far as conceptual
Mm-hmm.
misunderstandings, my ability to dig down deeper into a particular concept or look at it from different angles, then the way these tools help is they are able to give me a map as far as where my struggles are.
Mm-hmm.
And now, once I have a map of where my struggles are, then I can start working on those struggles. And it is able to give me patterns, give me different instances as to which areas of each concept am I struggling with. So those are
Mm-hmm.
some of the powerful aspects of any particular tool, which may not necessarily increase your speed of learning, but it is enabling you to identify what your struggles are and thereby in an indirect way increasing your speed of learning because then you don't have to struggle keeping pace with something that you've not already understood. You can
Mm-hmm.
understand those concepts at your own pace and then catch up to the whole class.
And also, it will reinforce for some children, the concepts are reinforced through gamification and AI.
Which are, and again, the reinforcement is great, and which is why when we start out in the year, the idea is to let Eduten go as parallel to the class content as possible. But then when you identify that, okay, there are some students who are performing way ahead of the curve,
Mm-hmm.
we explore making them do the more difficult tasks on the tool or take them to the next topics as well. So that's the basic idea of differentiated learning within the classroom. So we don't do it while teaching the subject, but as far as execution of Eduten is concerned, they are able to do it at differentiated levels as far as in accordance with
Yeah.
their comfort and expertise.
So, how do you place paper pen work in the classroom as of today?
It's extremely important, ma'am. The paper pen is something that is, I think, in today's world, undervalued and sometimes castigated for bad reasons. But it is extremely important for a child to write down whatever they are thinking because the process of writing down is what is making the synaptic connection in the brain. So, unless you are able to form those synaptic connections, you will not be able to recall things or understand things over a period of time. So, it is very critical that students engage in written work. There can be a balance,
Balance, right?
but to assume that technology will come in and just get rid of handwritten work is irrelevant. Some of the best thoughts that are formed are while writing things down rather than typing them down. So I don't think we are getting rid of written work anytime soon.
Can't agree with you more. I do agree. Also, would you like to give some message to the stakeholders, as in the leaders of the schools, to the parents, and to the little learners? How math can be made fun learning and not a drudgery? It's such an interesting subject. So, I think if you could just give some message for everyone, it would be really nice.
So you've and tried to encompass too many stakeholders in one message. I don't think one message would fit all. But in general, I think the idea should be to make any subject as much fun as possible. And one of the primary ways for school going children to make any subject fun is through gamification. At what level do you do gamification is totally up to you, but gamification plus technology intervention generally creates a very good recipe for things to succeed and go in the right direction, for you to be able to monitor the progress of the children and the children to have fun as well.
So I think we'll take that recipe. So we will take that recipe, everyone, right? So thank you so much, Mr. Raghav Sharma, to be here on the show and the insights that he's shared. I think it talks a lot about past and present and how the pedagogy has changed over the years and how it is helping the learners to learn faster and better with the modern tools. I think it's a must, but yet we have to be cautious about having a balance, and we will take that recipe on. Thank you so much for being on our show.
It was an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
In our next episode, we will take you on for another exciting educational journey. Stay tuned in. Thank you for joining Pedagogical Horizons. This podcast will be with you soon once again. If you enjoyed watching the podcast, do like, share, and subscribe. Happy learning and happy teaching. Have fun.